Hey everyone, me Kevin here. I am worried that Donald Trump is creating President Newsom, and I'm very disappointed about this because, frankly, I don't want to see a President Newsom. It makes me vomit a little bit inside. The Democratic Party, unfortunately, is a leaderless pit. That is, they lack leadership. It's frankly evidenced in their latest failed and, quite frankly, embarrassing social media campaigns of, frankly, just inauthenticity. Inauthentic content is the worst content. You may as well post no content. I mean, look at this. This is now being posted on X. Democrats using Command C, Command V, and there are videos of this, there are posts and screenshots of this, but basically you have multiple representatives of the Democratic Party just copy and pasting word for word exactly the same post on their X profiles, on their YouTube channels or TikToks. They're posting videos, copying scripts that they're provided. There's really no authenticity in any of the work, and it's really sad. This is not how our country deserves to be led or deserves to be informed by some propaganda machine. Now, I'm not here to say that Republicans are good and Democrats are bad. I'm simply to say Democrats don't have a leader right now. And unfortunately, because Democrats don't have a leader, they may end up raising the next best not leader, which is Newsom. See, right now, we just don't have a loud, like Vivek or Massey type person who's a Democrat. That is somebody who could be deemed more on the neutral side within the party and less extreme than somebody like an AOC or a Bernie Sanders or an Elizabeth Warren. You don't really have a more middle-grounded person. You're really a leaderless party. There's no Obama, Pelosi's on her way out, McConnell's on his way out, Schumer's not somebody who's able to lead the party. And so what you have is you have a shell of what the Democratic Party once was. You know, on the Republican side, obviously you have a massive powerhouse in the center, one of the most powerful powerhouses potentially of a century, Donald Trump. And then you have, copycat clowns like Grant Cardone, who left California for Florida, but now he's trying to set up a joke of a campaign to run for governor in California while living in Florida, which has questionable legality and frankly is borderline retarded. But that said, the Democratic Party has left America basically no good alternative to Republican power. And I'm not saying that, what the Republicans are doing is right or wrong. I'm not taking a side on this. I'm simply arguing there's really no strong leadership in the Democratic Party. And as a result of the lack of leadership, we'll probably fall to the best that we have, which would be a Newsom on the Democratic side, which makes me very sad. Why does that make me very sad? Well, because I ran against Governor Gavin Newsom in the 2021 recall election. To me, Newsom is a classic politician. The rules are for thee, not for me. He's failed the state of California on homelessness as mayor, as lieutenant governor, as governor. He's a career politician. He failed the state on education. We're in the bottom 20% of education throughout the state or throughout the country, and we tax our citizens next to Manhattan the most. He's failed the state on fire prevention, supervising counties and cities under jurisdictions. He's enabled rampant crime and, frankly, what I call governing retardation. Sorry for using the word. It's just the simplest way to put it, because what else are you supposed to call it when illegal pot farms in the California desert hook their pot farms up to our firefighting infrastructure? And then rather than actually punish crime in California and get rid of the criminals, they solve the problem by getting rid of the fire hydrants. These are true stories. You could look them up. It's just as bad as the high-speed rail to nowhere in California, which again is just borderline idiocy. California isn't what Americans want, at least not this version of California. If we went back to the golden age of California, great. Let's make America the golden age version of California. Everybody could benefit under that. But unfortunately, we don't have a strong leader in the Democratic Party, with the exception of, who's getting louder and louder and louder, Gavin Newsom. And see, during the turmoil that Donald Trump is creating through the tariff warfare, you're actually increasing the odds of somebody like Gavin Newsom getting more of a voice. Because people like Gavin Newsom, during another president or another presidency, can simply voice their opinions and make it seem like everything they say is a better alternate to what the sitting president does. This is very normal. This is what Donald Trump did when Biden was president, and now he's president. This is what Democrats are going to do against him. This is very common, and that's because popularity when you're president, when you're elected, quite frankly, as almost any elected official, your popularity usually peaks on inauguration. That's the nature of being a politician. It's not necessarily the individual's fault. Sure, there could be corruption as well, but politicians generally will promise the world, assuming everything will work out great if they win the election. But then the reality strikes. There are other interests, economic interests, countries, debts, congressional delays, legislative delays, budget delays, economic crises, recessions that come out of nowhere. And unfortunately, Trump's tariff war is hurting the pocketbooks of a lot of Americans. And that is going to make your loudest Democrats more popular. And again, I am fearful that the best Democrat option that exists, because the field is so dead, is somebody like Newsom. Now, you could argue that it could be, some we might have more reasonable, level-headed leaders or Democrats that could end up running for governorship in California. But again, this video is about my concern for 2028, because I believe if Donald Trump's tariff war ends up pushing us into a recession, it will be so unpopular that Trump's administration will actually be punished. And even if what he's trying to accomplish ends up setting the stage for renewed free trade negotiations, just like we saw in 1933 when we went back to free trade under FDR after we lifted the tariffs that were implemented in just the years prior. Unfortunately, if we end up in a recession before that, Republicans could end up losing their power in midterms in 2026. See, it seems like this political power of MAGA has just begun, but really, the clock is ticking. You don't have time to get through a recession and then be able to hold on to power in 2026. You need to avoid a recession between now and 2026 to maintain power. Because if you lose power in 2026, we're going to have a lame duck session of Congress for 2 years, and Donald Trump is really not going to be able to get a lot done. He's got to get his tax plan done this year, but that won't necessarily do many people very good if all of a sudden they've lost their jobs or their incomes. And again, it's just going to elevate somebody like Newsom. So my advice to Republicans is that we should be really careful about toying with the delicate pH of our economy under this idea that, oh, it's just a negotiation. Well, 340 million people are about to suffer a really nasty recession in America if the stock market keeps selling off like this. Because as the stock market sells off and people get concerned about a recession, what do small businesses do? Small businesses start laying off people and defaulting on their loans and going bankrupt. That then leads to job loss in medium-sized businesses and large-sized businesses. We don't need to worry about the adjustments like we had in 2022 at Microsoft or Meta, where they're laying off tens of thousands of people, because they were easily able to re-enter the job market and get another job. Well, today's job market is not like it was in 2022. And therefore, it's my opinion that right now, the uncertainty that is being created in policy by the Trump administration is creating a very easy opening for somebody who can paint themselves as a more neutral, natural, in the middle, democratic leader to gain a lot of popularity and a lot of power. This is the time that a Democrat leader could really seize a lot of attention and a lot of power. And I think that's exactly what Governor Newsom is trying to do with the launching of his podcast. I'm not a fan of Newsom. I think he's made a lot of mistakes. I don't think he would be a great president. However, timing-wise, it might actually work out really well for him. Because if Donald Trump does end up ushering a recession in, the Make America Great Again foundations of budget cuts, DOGE cuts, and renegotiated trade warfare, free trade, ideally renegotiated, the benefits of all of that Trump work won't come until the 2028 presidency. And so somebody else will just inherit the foundations that Trump built because he would be busy dealing with the recession. So, that said, again, my advice is, please don't steer this country to recession, because it's just going to lead to somebody like Newsom taking power. That said, if we can get an alternative to Newsom, somebody who is actually level-headed and more reasonable and neutral and realistic, and not a clown like what we see in California, great. Then Americans can have choice in 2028. I'm not saying you have to pick one side or the other, but right now Republicans are sitting pretty damn pretty because there's very little competition against them. And things have been going very well up until really the last 2 weeks, thanks to the uncertainty created by tariff policy. Which is fine. If tariff policy goes away, we get that solved. If we get the budget shutdown solved, which we probably will, we always do, and we get a ceasefire with Russia-Ukraine, even if it's just for 30 days, it's a sign of progress. There's a lot that can get us enthusiasm back in the markets and help us avoid a recession. But we need to stop the tit-for-tat crisis that we're creating in markets right now, because it's just going to rise someone like Governor Newsom to power, and I don't want to see that for America.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.